After years of hard work and deliberation, I've finally reached 100 hours in every class, despite having over 2,000 hours in Team Fortress 2, which is probably due to too much time on boxing, spending gifts, crafting hats, whatever. So I'm here to offer my answer to one of Team Fortress 2's greatest questions. Which class is the best class? This is not the definitive answer, but this is my take on it. And there are actually two correct answers to this question. The first one is the gameplay-wise best class, and the second one is the actual best class. The first answer is, with some dispute, Medic and Demoman, gameplay-wise. Alone, they are strong, but together they are nigh unstoppable if they are coordinated. Medics and Demoman should not be lacking in any game, as you'll find that any game without one of these goes pretty poorly for your team. The amount of situations that a Demoman and Medic can conquer that other classes can still do, but less reliably or takes a longer time, is substantial to say the least. There are other videos out there that more intricately explain class tiers as suggested by competitive communities or people who have played the game for far longer than I have, so I feel like an in-depth review from me would not only be redundant, but plagued with personal bias. But in 2,000 hours, I have to admit that although engineers are handy to have and snipers can passively control a battlefield and soldiers are amazing mobility generalists, that heavies are fantastic at short-range DPS and even mid-range DPS, and that scouts are just annoying in the hands of somebody with God mode anything, and that spies are certainly tough to deal with, and that pyros in their own right are amazing at deflecting damage, and to whoever else I forgot to mention. Did I forget anyone? No, I think so. But like, Medic and Demo combo is at the top, and at least at a tie for me personally. Like, a Demo is only as powerful as his Medic, because, you know, Demo men are pretty easily taken down if you're not careful. What that kind of brings me into the actual best class, and my answer to this is that there is no best class. Now, this might sound like a cop-out answer to some, but allow me to give my reasoning behind this. The best class in Team Fortress 2 is the one that you enjoy playing the most, objectively, or your main, if you will. Now, that does sound pretty silly at close glance, doesn't it? I like to think that a lot of you have your eyebrows raised to that. You're like, oh, what is this, a Hollywood cheesy answer? Allow me to clarify. Let's first begin with William Glasser's choice theory. The summarized content of this theory is, by Mr. Glasser, is that we act to satisfy 5 basic needs: love and belonging, powerful, free, fun, and survival. And while this theory is more so applied to real life than it is video games, it is still quite applicable here. For example, you obviously want to fulfill a role that people like and want you to be. You want a role that makes a difference in what you're doing. You want a class that you have chosen to play as. You want to personally enjoy this class, and you want to live long enough to kill someone else, usually repeatedly and without remorse, for a kill streak that gives you personal gratitude and satisfies your inner demons. That basically, if you are internally motivated to accomplish something, you will do better at doing so rather than having an external punishment that would be there in the event that you failed playing something that you didn't like. So whatever, man, you labeled one theory by some dude who died in 2013. Okay, well, fine. How about social facilitation, or the audience effect, which basically is how you will be different in front of an audience than while alone. And while in said presence of the audience, you'll do better at tasks you're familiar with than the new tasks that you've never done before or have little practice in. Well, that seems pretty obvious, right? Well, replace the audience with not only 5 to 11 players on your team, but the 5 to 11 players on the enemy team, all of which indirectly affect your performance based on their own. And that, too, is a bell curve of your performance. If your team is doing too well, you won't be able to get a chance to shine. If your team is doing poorly, you have less support. This theory also recognizes that under the influence of audience pressure, some individuals may have inverse effects, which is understandable, but usually not the case when it comes to practiced and measured actions. Okay, well, the audience effect makes sense. Well, what about Yerkes Dodson law, which also applies to this situation, which states that things you're interested in, or explained by the law itself, aroused in, you do better in that performance, to a point. if you're infatuated with the task, you can actually do worse, which I think is kind of funny. It's like tunnel vision and all that stuff. For example, if a pyro is too focused on performing one specific action to the point of forcing it, they will consequently do less for their team. We could probably make an hour-long video about the various psychological warfare that goes into tilting, rewards, potential, skill ceiling, motivation, recreation, what constitutes fun in shooters, etc. But we're not here for that. It is accepted knowledge that you learn something better when you are interested in it. You retain that knowledge because it is relevant to you. But it's not an excuse to just play one specific class and say that this is the only class that interests you. You will learn more about your class by playing other classes and trying to fight against yourself. You will learn more from failing to fight your own class than succeeding. I still encourage you to learn new classes. You will do far better while doing this. Knowing what kills you keeps you alive longer, much longer. And that's pretty much it. There's really no need to go in depth because this kind of game is designed around any class succeeding in a myriad of situations. Each one is outfitted with interchangeable loadouts that, when combined properly for that situation, rock and knock the socks off of the enemy team. Or even better, the loadout that suits you and your playstyle will absolutely affect your performance. If something is off meta but you do great with it, who cares about the goddamn meta? You will succeed better if you're doing something that you personally enjoy doing. Now, there are situations that if you want to win and you realize that objectively something is the better weapon, you may want to switch for that, but other than that, if you know that what you're doing is working, then who cares about the meta or anything like that? Games that provide character upon character, counter upon counter, stat against stat, they throw this idea of the best class out of the window because there's much less personal involvement in each. Basically, the more people or variables there are in a game, the less that each one of those can be individually fleshed out, unless you just have 20 years to work on a video game. It just usually doesn't pan out in its favor and things become objectively better than one another. It's kind of why one of the staples of RPGs is like, haha, I've started with the bronze sword of slashing things. It has a +1 slash attribute. And then they get to the point where it's like, I have the demon god king's flame axe of absolute peril, that whenever it swings, it sends a horde of harpies that are on fire, that birth harpies in the sky that fall to the ground in egg explosions. And it also has +3 defense and beauty attributes. Like, at the end of the game, it gets crazy unbalanced, which is fine for RPGs because it's made to kind of go in that way where it's like, oh man, character progression, but that's another topic, and that's another topic entirely. Thankfully, I think that's why many of us are here for Team Fortress 2, because just about any class can do just about anything when you're good enough at it. And that's the beauty of this game. So, there is no best class because it's about the player. It really is, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that we get to play a game that allows for that sort of thing. And another thing is that we take this thing that any one class can be the best class, for granted. Because a lot of games are moving in this direction where as you play, there's this sense of progression. And that the progression allows you to continue to do better and better, and you get better gear, or better cards, or better attributes to attach to your character, and things that you once liked and might still like to do are no longer relevant because they just simply cannot function with the other things in games. It's an unfortunate thing that we're seeing, but I think it's just a style of change that gaming is going through, and I personally hope that we deviate away from it, but there are a lot of people that enjoy progression, so I can't say that I'm totally against it if it means for a growing game industry. It just all kind of depends on the players, which is, you know, back to where we are with Team Fortress 2 and not the best class. So, I hope that you understand where I'm coming from, and if you're worried about maining something that isn't in the meta, don't worry. just don't. Do what you love because it's a game at the end of the day. If you want to do it competitively, if you're good enough at something, you can make it work competitively. There are people that do that every single day. Yes, it's a challenge, but if it's worth it to you, then do it. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. Please, stay tuned because more will be coming your way. Bye-bye.